8 guys of NASAT. Hope you're having fun today. I've already got your names. Is everyone ready to start? Yeah, okay. Toss-up 1. An artist from this movement reportedly beat up an art dealer at an auction of the massive Galerie Kahnweiler. The gigantic...
Cubism.
That's 10. And here's your bonus. At the beginning of this play, this character's boots are dropped off by one of his servants for 10 points each. Identify this unnamed and unseen character, the employer of the cook, Christine. His arrival at the end of the play ends the plans of two characters to start a hotel together.
Oh wait, I think it's like Hallie's mother.
Answer?
Is it Hallie's mother?
The Count, or the father of Miss Julie. This Swedish author wrote the play Miss Julie.
Yes, Bird.
Late in Miss Julie, while the valet Jean tries to persuade Miss Julie to come away with him, he engages in what violent action directed against the companion of Julie's?
He beheads her parrot, right? Say it. He kills your parrot?
Yes, that's right. Toss-up 2. 2 answers required. In a region disputed by these two countries, a night of fire was orchestrated by the BAS, or BAS, who bombed 37 electrical pylons in 1961. Around 10,000 troops from these two countries were killed in a series of avalanches near Mount Marmolada. Pilots from one of these two countries dropped 50,000 propaganda leaflets on the other's capital toward the end of World War I. These two countries clashed at the Piave River, currently share the Brenner Pass, and disputed ownership over South Tyrol. The general...
Austria and Italy?
Yes, that's 10. Bonus. This hymn is basically a paraphrase of Psalm 46. For 10 points each, give the title, the English title or first line of this hymn, still sung today, even though it was written in 1529. This hymn proclaims that the Lord is a bulwark never failing and is our helper amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing.
A mighty fortress is our God.
Yes, a mighty fortress is our God was written by this Protestant leader and author of the 95 Theses.
Luther.
Despite her blindness, this woman wrote more than 8,000 hymns, including such standards as Blessed Assurance and To God Be the Glory. Some hymnals gave her aliases rather than credit her so many times for songs.
No, it's like an English woman. Can be some English girl. No.
Answer?
Smith.
Fanny Crosby. 20 points on the bonus. Toss-up 3. In this novel, a man wipes blood from his nose on the protagonist's cheeks as he demands she return his diamond stickpin to him. This novel's protagonist and all but one of her peers are poisoned by crab meat stuffed avocado pears at a catered event.
The bell jar.
Yes. Can you test it again? Doesn't work?
See. Now it does.
It does work?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's your bonus. The paper experiment in South Africa is attempting to detect 21 centimeter hydrogen emission lines from this epoch. For 10 points each, name this cosmological period during which the first stars and galaxies formed. Holes in the 21 centimeter background indicate the stripping of electrons from hydrogen during this period.
Give me a line for star forming or something like that.
Answer?
No.
Reionization. Reionization occurred approximately 400 million years after this other event that marked the creation of all of the matter in the universe.
Big Bang.
The presence of this effect in the spectra of observed quasars at around z=6 provides evidence for the epoch of reionization. In this effect, the flux drops to zero at wavelengths below the Lyman alpha peak.
Okay.
Answer? Gunn-Peterson trough. 10 points. Toss-up 4. A cyclic unsaturated ketone with this many carbon atoms is formed in a reaction where methyl vinyl ketone and another carbonyl compound undergo a microaddition followed by an aldol condensation. While saturated rings with this number of atoms are the most thermodynamically stable, rings one atom smaller are kinetically preferred in ring closures. This is equal to the number of bonding minus anti-bonding electrons in the dinitrogen MO diagram. The potential energy between gaseous rotating dipole scales is -1 over distance to this power.
4?
Nope. The same as the attractive part of the Leonard-Jones potential. Benzene has this many pi molecular orbitals and this many pi electrons. For 10 points, give the number of carbon atoms in cyclohexane.
6.
Yep. Okay. Here's your bonus. The Earl of Winchelsea engaged in one of these events in Battersea Fields in 1829. For 10 points each, Foreign Secretary George Canning engaged in what kind of event in 1809 at Putney Heath, which resulted in him suffering a thigh wound?
Duel.
The Earl of Winchelsea memorably fought a duel with this man, a prime minister better known for defeating Napoleon at Waterloo.
Duke of Wellington.
After a duel in which his opponent died, this Irish leader, known as the Liberator, refused to fight another duel. He held monster meetings calling for the repeal of the Act of Union.
It's not Parnell.
Hands, Parnell,
Collins.
Daniel O'Connell, 20 points. Toss of 5. Many buildings in this country incorporate the quote, "Boys be ambitious," said by William S. Clark, who founded a college here. Many items in the Smithsonian from this country were once owned by Horace Capron, who was sent by Ulysses S. Grant to improve its agriculture. Townsend Harris was the first U.S. ambassador to this country, negotiating the Treaty of Amity and Commerce with it. Immigration from this country to the U.S. was limited by the Elihu route negotiated.
Japan.
Yes.
I'm so confused.
Bonus. In this novel, Doremus Jessup writes editorials for a periodical called the Vermont Vigilance for 10 points each. Name this 1935 novel in which the villainous President Buzz Windrip runs the fascist-style corpo government.
Yeah.
It Can't Happen Here.
It Can't Happen Here was written by this author, whose other satirical books include Main Street and Aerosmith.
Those.
This other novel about a dystopian government features the oligarchy building the poverty-ridden city of Asgard. This book features a resistance whose members include Ernest and Avis Everhard.
Is it Iron? I think it is. Iron Heel.
Yes, 30. Toss-up 6. The sim-median point is the isogonal conjugate of this point. For a finite set of points, this point minimizes the sum of the squares of the distances to them. The volume of a solid of revolution is equal to the area of the revolved figure times the distance traveled by this point according to Pappus's theorem.
Centroid.
Yes.
Good job.
Here's your bonus. If a group does not have this property, then it has a non-identity element equal to its own square. For 10 points each, identify this property of groups. The Feit-Thompson theorem, whose proof took up an entire issue of the Pacific Journal of Mathematics, showed that all groups with this property are solvable.
Give me some words for groups. Commutative.
Answer.
Commutative.
Having odd order. The Feit-Thompson theorem implies that all groups of odd order have one of this type of subgroup, whose left and right cosets are equal. In three-dimensional geometry, this adjective describes vectors that are perpendicular to a surface or plane at a point.
Normal.
Solvable groups are used in the theory of this kind of function, which can always be solved in radicals if their degree is 4 or lower. These functions consist of sums of powers of a variable multiplied by coefficients.
Polynomials.
20. Toss-up 7. The author of this book expatiates on 8 different ways in which the world could be said to be unified and eventually endorses a non-dogmatic, pluralistic view. This book's author claims that the right to take a moral holiday is a large part of what the belief in the absolute is known as. This book controversially maintains that ideas become true just insofar as they help us to get into satisfactory relation with other parts of our experience. The first lecture in this book draws a broad distinction between
Pragmatism.
Yes, that's 10.
What pragmatism?
Bonus. A 2017 election in this country was triggered after its deputy first minister resigned in protest over the so-called cash for ash scandal involving a failed renewable heat scheme for 10 points each. Name this country whose Democratic Unionist Party and its allies failed to win a majority for the first time ever in that 2017 election.
You want to do some- The Netherlands? Austria? No, Austria? Maybe Austria. Yeah.
Answer.
Austria.
Northern Ireland. Martin McGuinness, a member of this party, was the deputy first minister who resigned in 2017. McGuinness is a member of this party, the largest nationalist party in Northern Ireland Assembly. Answer.
Fianna Fáil.
Sinn Féin. The founder of the Democratic Unionist Party, Ian Paisley, once shouted, I denounce you as the Antichrist at this religious leader. Born Karol Wojtyla in Poland, this man was succeeded by Benedict XVI.
John Paul II. John Paul II.
Yes, that's 10 points. Toss-up 8. In a poem dedicated to his mother, this author described a felled chestnut tree as a soul ramifying and forever, silent beyond silence listened for. The speaker of a poem by this author declares, I always felt like crying. It wasn't fair that all the canfuls smelt of rot, after harvesting the title fruit in late August. In another poem by this author, the speaker remembers Big Jim Evans saying it was a hard blow, and seeing the corpse of one of his relatives wearing a poppy bruise on his left temple. This author of Clearances and Blackberry Picking described his dead brother Christopher lying in a 4-foot box, a foot per...
Haiti?
Yes. And here's your bonus. Just before he died, this artist made a chalk portrait of a black man who made the Toussaint Louverture. For 10 points each, identify this French artist who adopted unusual poses such as yawning in his self-portraits. A self-portrait in which he points at the viewer has become an internet meme.
Oh, it's like no, the guy who's an artist.
Answer.
Oh, artist? I don't know.
Joseph Ducreux. Ducreux painted a portrait of this woman prior to her marriage. Jacques-Louis David sketched this queen on her way to the guillotine.
Yeah, Marie Antoinette.
This female artist made several sympathetic portraits of Marie Antoinette, including one where her son lifts the cover of a cradle of a dead relative. She depicted Lord Nelson's mistress, Lady Hamilton, as a bacchante holding a tambourine.
Libre.
Prompt?
Vigay Libre.
Yes.
Nice.
That's 20 points.
Hey, but we got Marion Nut right.
Yeah, 20 points. Yeah, 20.
Okay, I thought you said 10.
Alright, here's toss-up 9. Drugs used to treat this disease include one that can cause optic neuritis and red-green color blindness. Incubating lymphocytes with protein derivative and assaying for interferon gamma release and assaying for interferon gamma release comprise the quantiferon assay for this disease. It is often treated with the RIPE regimen, which includes pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and isoniazid.
Tuberculosis.
Yeah. And your bonus, this mens agnomen cunctator means lingerer in Latin. For 10 points each, name this Roman leader or his namesake strategy, which he employed after the Battle of Lake Trasimene. His strategy involved wearing down an opponent and avoiding frontal assaults and decisive battles, which annoyed the public.
It's the guy fought Hannibal. No, it's the one in Italy.
Answer?
Lucius.
No, it's the Fabian strategy. Quintus Fabius. The Fabian strategy was used during the Punic Wars when Rome fought this city.
Carthage.
After abandoning the Fabian strategy, the Romans were crushed at the Battle of Cannae, in which Carthage employed numerous fighters from the Balearic Islands who were skilled with this weapon. Ancient authors were impressed with this weapon's range and supposedly armor-piercing power.
Sling.
Yeah. 20. And toss up 10. In an incident in this modern day state, Dr. John Pyle's crew of loyalists were attacked by patriots they confused for British cavalry. In a battle in this state, Banastra Tarleton lost two of his
South Carolina.
fingers. That battle here prompted Charles James Fox to note another such victory would ruin the British Army. An uprising broke out in this future state partly because of Governor William Tryon opting to build a lavish home in New Bern. A March 1781 battle in this modern-day state was a Pyrrhic victory for Lord Cornwallis over Nathaniel Greene, which prompted Cornwallis to move towards Virginia and Yorktown. For 10 points, the War of the Regulation and the Battle of Guilford Courthouse took place in what future state? The latter near modern-day Greensboro.
North Carolina.
Yes.
That one, I like it.
And your bonus. Answer the following about journalist Ted Koppel's intersections with religions, for 10 points each. In his book Lights Out, Koppel noted that followers of this religion were well equipped to survive a cyber attack on America's power grids. He noted the storehouses of supplies that the heads of this religion have created in Utah.
Okay, so this should be Mormon.
Yeah, Mormon is
In a contentious 1992 interview, Koppel grilled David Miscavige, a prominent leader in this religion, who made his first and to date only live TV appearance on Koppel's program.
Scientology.
Yes. In 1994, Koppel apologized for using a potentially pejorative term to refer to followers of this religion. Its scripture is called the Exposition of the Divine Principle, and it held large public gatherings in the 1970s in New York.
Hare Krishna.
Answer?
Hare Krishna.
Unification Church. 20. It's halftime. I have a score of 55 to 25. 55 to 25?
No, you said 25. I was like, wait a minute.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Are you guys ready for a second? Or is there a sub? You're staying in? Okay. All right. Are you guys ready to start? Ready? Yeah? Yeah? 11. One sculpture of this name lent its name to a museum in the former Spanish hospital in the Sforza Castle in Milan. A Palestrina version of this scene stands diagonally opposite from the artist's best-known sculpture in the Accademia Gallery. Tiberius Calcagni reconstructed a destroyed Florentine version of this scene in which the artist may have modeled Nicodemus after himself. Unusually, both figures stand in the Rondanini version of this scene. The original marble nose of the woman in the best-known version of this...
Pietà.
Yes. And your bonus. A ruler with this name fought the 609 BC Battle of Megiddo, during which his opponent Judah's king Josiah died, for 10 points each. Give the name of the Egyptian pharaoh II with this name, who also ordered an expedition of Phoenicians which supposedly sailed around Africa in 3 years.
Thutmose.
Necho. Necho II also attempted to build a canal from the Nile to the Red Sea, a precursor of sorts to this modern artificial waterway connecting the Mediterranean and Red Seas.
This canal.
The Phoenician story comes to readers from this historian, whose knowledge of Egypt has been questioned, as has his claim that giant ants could be found in India. Answer?
Herodotus.
Yes. That's 20.
Good job.
So we both doubted each other's answers.
Toss up 12. This man befriended Dr. Saxon Pope while receiving treatment for various diseases, and he taught Pope the skills later honored by the Pope and Young Club. Oren Starn wrote a 2004 book about this man's brain, which was long separated from his remains. A 1961 biography of this person documents how most of his family was killed in the Three Knolls massacre. For the last 5 years of his life, this man worked as a research assistant and lived in an apartment at what is now the Phoebe A. Hearst Museum of Anthropology. A book about this man in two worlds was written by Theodora...
Einstein?
No. The wife of a scientist whom this person worked alongside. In 1911, he emerged near Lassen Peak and was given a name meaning man by Alfred Kroger. For 10 points, name this last known member of the Yahi people.
Ishi?
Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking Einstein.
It was anthropology with the brain numbers on that.
No, it's the Einstein brain thing.
Never mind, that's
Such a
that we
temptation.
lost. Do not do
Okay.
that.
And here's your bonus. The speaker declares, "Tell me why this goblin honor, which the world adores, should make men atheists and not women whores," in A Rapture, a poem by one of these poets. For 10 points each, name this group of 17th century British poets, including Richard Lovelace, Thomas Carew, and Sir John Suckling.
Yeah, Cameron.
Yes, while Lovelace was in one of these locations, he wrote a poem to Althea that contains the line, "Stone walls do not one of these places make, nor iron bars a cage."
A prison.
John Suckling's play Aglora is the original source of the poem that opens with the speaker asking a fond lover why he has these two synonymous qualities.
What are two qualities?
Answer:
Truth and beauty.
pale and wan.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks, it.
20 points.
Yeah.
As much as 13.
Why so pale?
Toss up 13. In a story by this author, the narrator habitually throws salt on himself and is nicknamed Mr. Mortician by his family after attending a series of funerals one summer. He wrote a story in which an array of different colored lanterns around a playground attract a creature that a schoolboy offers to his classmate. This author of Master of Funerals and The Grasshopper and the Bell Cricket wrote a story whose protagonist has a laughing fit when he discovers a girl he'd seen carrying a large drum is actually a young teenager. This man wrote the Palm of the Hand stories. Yes. Your bonus. At various points in this song, the stage directions claim that the singer is bothered for a rhyme. For 10 points each, name either this song or the character who sings this song from The Pirates of Penzance. The singer of this song knows the kings of England and quotes the fight's historical.
Major General.
Answer?
He's a modern I am the very model of a modern Major General.
Yes. The Pirates of Penzance is a comic opera by W.S. Gilbert and this composer. In the first stanza of the song, the Major General says that he has many cheerful facts about this mathematical concept, which he rhymes with a lot of news.
Hypotenuse.
Prompt.
Right triangle.
The square of the hypotenuse. 20 points. Toss up 14. The gathering of this resource poses a potential threat to the farming industry around the Swakop River. A collection of this resource with unusual characteristics was discovered in the Aklo region of Gabon. A New York Times op-ed about this resource titled "What I Didn't Find in Africa" was...
Uranium?
Yes.
Why is uranium a resource?
Bonus. This pianist escaped the Bolshevik Revolution after writing his second set of Etudes Tableaux, then published only 6 more works during his 25-year tour of America. 10 points each. Name this late Romantic composer who quoted the Dies Irae for his Isle for the Dead and wrote a difficult piano concerto No. 3.
Rachmaninoff.
The last of Rachmaninoff's 14 romances, Opus 34, is one of these wordless songs in C-sharp minor. Fauré and Messiaen wrote etudes of this type, and one by Ravel is in the form of a habanera.
Madrigal.
Answer?
Madrigal.
Vocalise. In Rachmaninoff's Vocalise, the soprano sings her long last note over this type of cadence, one of which opens Beethoven's Les Adieux Sonata. In this type of irregular resolution, a 5-chord surprisingly resolves up to a 6-chord instead of the tonic. It's often used to extend a phrase or create a one-more-time effect.
I think that's the cadence. Anyone else? Cladle cadence.
This is a deceptive cadence. 10 points.
A hard part.
There's a deceptive cadence.
Toss-up 15. Because he wishes to run off with his mistress, a character in this novel files a lawsuit against himself to void all the furniture from his house, but loses the case and ends up in jail. At the end of this novel, the protagonist loosens the strap of a saddle, causing a man to fall off his horse. In this novel, the hostess of the Stag Inn tell of a strange marriage in which a widow tricks the Marquis de Arcy into marrying a prostitute. In this novel, the title character is shot in the knee but nursed back to health by Denise, who becomes his lover. That title character believes that every event is written on a scroll up above. For 10 points, name this novel about a Frenchman with a pessimistic philosophy, a work of Denis Diderot.
Jacques the Fatalist.
Yes. And here's your bonus. Summing over each of these is necessary to calculate the partition function. For 10 points each. Identify these configurations of a thermodynamic system. The entropy is proportional to the log of the number of these configurations.
Vector states.
That equation for the entropy of a system was formulated by this man, who co-names a law of black-body radiation with Joseph Stefan.
Boltzmann.
This hypothesis says that all the microstates are equally probable over a sufficiently long time. The Fermi-Pasta-Ulam experiment showed that this hypothesis did not hold for a vibrating string.
Wait, what is the hypothesis like?
Answer?
We don't have it now.
Ergodic hypothesis. 20.
Yeah.
Toss up 16. But first, the score, I have 270, 145. Yeah, okay. The book Trick or Treatment is sarcastically dedicated to this man, mocking his noted support for alternative medicines. Frank Gehry and other architects have criticized this man's attacks on modern architecture, and he gave a 1984 speech denouncing a National Gallery extension as a monstrous carbuncle. The press referred to him and his wife as the Glums, and in 1981 this man's bride caused a stir by omitting the word obey from her wedding vows. It has been alleged that...
Prince Charles?
Yes.
That was fun.
Answer the following about the highlight of Greek mythology, Zeus's wacky womanizing strategies, for 10 points each. Zeus once seduced a nymph of this name in the form of an eagle and turned her into a vegetation goddess by burying her to escape Hera's wrath. The muse of comedy and the grace other than Aglaia and Euphrosyne shared this name. Answer? Thalia. Zeus also pulled the eagle trick with this nymph and left her on the island named for her. Their son was Achilles' grandfather, Aeacus, who prayed for the creation of the Myrmidons. Answer?
No, we don't have that.
Aegina. Zeus more famously disguised himself as a swan to get the attention of this queen of Sparta, resulting in the hatching of the Dioskuroi, Clytemnestra, and Helen. Yes, 10. Toss-up 17. Bernd Alois Zimmermann's concerto for this instrument is based on the spiritual Nobody Knows the Trouble I See. This instrument imitates a horse's whinny at the end of Leroy Anderson's sleigh ride. Players of this instrument often audition with its slow bluesy solo from the middle section of An American in Paris, which is meant to evoke homesickness. This solo instrument plays out of sync with the fighting answerers and the silence of the druids. A player of this instrument...
Trumpet?
Yeah. And your bonus. This man's painting of an American flag, his first work of art, sold for over $100,000 on eBay. For 10 points each, name this man best known for fatally shooting a youth in Sanford, Florida. He argued self-defense and was acquitted in 2013.
Zimmerman.
Zimmerman called this politician an ignorant baboon. This father of Sasha and Malia infamously noted that if he had a son, he would look like the youth Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin.
I'm not doing that.
Barack Hussein Obama II.
Yes. Another racial incident during the Obama presidency involved the president hosting a beer summit between Sergeant James Crowley and this African-American professor arrested in 2009 after neighbors thought he was trying to break into his own home.
Who's the Harvard person?
So like, Cornell West? Or, no. I'm confused.
Answer?
Cornell.
Henry Louis Skip Cates.
Yeah.
Harvard person.
So, 20. Toss up 18. Description acceptable. A subordinate of the ruler of this place wears a hat bearing a phrase translated as "become rich upon encountering me," while another subordinate has a hat with a phrase translated as "arresting you right now." Those two men who work in this place are former dedicated police constables known as the Black and White Guard. In a story about this place, Mu Lian journeys there to find his mother and upon returning begins a festival on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month. The guardians of this place are known as Oxhead and Horseface, and some Joss paper is known as its money. This location is said to have 18 levels, with the worst being Avicii.
The Buddhist underworld?
Yes. 10. Bonus. The Lone Star species of these animals can induce an allergy to red meat by exposing its human host to alpha-gal for 10 points each. Name these blood-sucking arachnids that transmit the pathogens responsible for Rocky Mountain spotted fever and Lyme disease.
Ticks.
Rocky Mountain spotted fever is caused by a member of this genus of bacteria. Typhus develops from infection with other species in this genus.
Strep.
Answer.
Strep.
Rickettsia. Another tick-borne disease, tularemia, is also named for a fever attributed to contact with this mammal. A namesake hemorrhagic disease virus and myxoma virus have been used to control certain populations of this animal.
Mosquitoes.
Rats. Give me mammals. Cow.
Answer.
Cows.
Rabbit. 10 points. Toss-up 19. Feynman's checkerboard method can be used to solve this equation in a restricted...
Dirac.
Yes. Bonus. This character is temporarily confused by Mr. Worldly Wiseman. For 10 points each, name or describe this character who battles the demon Apollyon, is arrested at Vanity Fair, and ultimately arrives at the Celestial City.
Christian.
Christian is the protagonist of this John Bunyan novel that is an allegory for the Christian lifestyle.
Pilgrim's Progress.
The second part of Pilgrim's Progress features the character of Mercy, 4 youths, and this other person, making the same journey as Christian. Name or describe this character.
It's the big one.
It's like Fortitude.
Answer.
Fortitude?
Christiania, or Christian's wife.
Yeah, his wife.
Okay.
20.
They like catch up or something like wait.
And last toss-up. This character marries a woman from a culture that buries a couple together after one of them dies, and he is thrown into a cavern with his wife's body after she dies. This man recounts his adventures to a poor porter who has the same name as him. He becomes enslaved by a being that he tries to help cross a stream, but tricks that being into drinking wine and releasing his shoulders. In another adventure, this character's men eat the contents of a giant egg, but are then...
Sinbad.
Yes. Bonus. One of these things that was popular until the mid-20th century was produced by Alfred Marshall in 1890. 10 points each. Name these things, 2 popular American examples of which were produced by Laurie Tarshis and Paul Samuelson after World War II.
E-context books.
A paradox discussed in Samuel's textbook, Economics, states that individuals performing this action may lead to a lower aggregate demand and thus less of this action on a national level. Answer?
Like purchasing.
Saving. The 5th book of Alfred Marshall's Principles of Economics discusses formal representations of these two contrasting economic concepts. The quantities specified by these two concepts will balance at the market clearing price.
What is it? Demand and like.
Answer. This is supply and demand.
Oh.
10 points on the bonus. Final score, 370, Ohio A, 165, Illinois B.
Playing Alabama.
Thank you. Yay.
Wait, Margaret, you're going to Ace. Alright, Ace.
Staffing, right?
Yeah, I'm stepping. Wait, you're stepping? I'm stepping Illinois.
Second
Ace.
half.
Yeah, nice.
Shake that off.
Illinois, Ace.
Playing Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that is probably the best team.